Here he is, ladies and gents, Chris Mathis. This is the first time that you and I have actually seen each other in the virtual sense. I've always heard your voice, that majestic radio executive producer podcasting voice of yours. So it's good to see you, to make this as real as possible. I'm sorry again that I couldn't be in studio to join the show today, but thanks so much for making it a home and home, dude.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I appreciate the opportunity. And I've been following your work for a couple of years now. And, you know, us intertwining throughout our careers has really been awesome. And keeping up with you and your stories. And you know what? We'll make a rain check, if you will. I know it was raining there at Bucks OTAs today. We'll take a rain check for the next time you're in town to stop by the studio at iHeart. We'd love to have you anytime and always enjoy talking with you. And you still made it work today. You still joined us on the phone on the Ronnie and T-Crash show. So no complaints here whatsoever.
You guys are way too good to me. I always appreciate the love. And, you know, we had the Rashad White story last year, and it was great BSing about that. And such an interesting team. And I have to start here, though, because you saved my butt today. I too often get going into podcast mode. Our listeners know, I tend to swear from time to time on here. And I'm usually good with the swearing when I pop onto, like, the more professional radio segments, but you asked me, or not, I should say the show asked me about Baker Mayfield and the offense, and I'm like, you know what a great opportunity to dive into a story. Andy Janovich, who's been on our happy hours, and he's just old school, tough son of a bitch. He is as old of a football soul as you can possibly get, and we caught up toward the end of Baker's Browns days. And I had to find the exact quote. So this is what he told me about Baker. Okay. He played through the shoulder injury. He goes, quote, "The thing about Baker is he won't say shit to anyone about anything. You could cut his dick off and he wouldn't fucking say shit." So that to try to explain to your listeners here in Tampa, like the value of one Baker Mayfield and how it transcends the metrics. I'm like playing that quote in my head. I'm like, okay. I think people would like to know, what makes Baker special, but I didn't say the F word, obviously.
No,
and I didn't say dick, but I did say penis, that he'd be willing to play devout of a penis. And being the amazing producer that you are, take our listeners behind the scene. How do you quickly make up for my awful gaffe to say that publicly?
All right, so I am live tweeting the interview. Like anytime I hear a good quote, I'm live tweeting, publishing it. I'm quoting you on it. I'm tagging our show in it as well. And I'm sitting there and I'm typing up the next tweet, and then I hear penis. And I'm like, wait. I look around I legit, you have a few seconds to react. So I know my reaction was this. I look up and I'm like, yeah, he did. And I hit the dump button. So you hit the dump button, it's not out there. You're good. So it was not, over our airwaves or anything like that. Us behind the scenes, Ronnie, Tom, and I, we did hear it, but I reacted quick enough. But I was so startled. I'm like, yeah, he did. Boom, hit dump. So it was cool. And hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. So it's the first time I've hit the dump button in our new studio at iHeartRadio Tampa Bay. So we just moved to Feather Sound Studios. It's the first time. It's been about 3 months and some change. So, hey, you know what? First time I talk with you and get to see you was the first time I hit the dump button. So it was spectacular, man. I will never, ever forget this day, ever.
So I was that unprofessional of a guest. You bring me on to talk about the Bucks, and then I have to, force you to frantically hit the dump button. So did it just get cut off? Like, where? So was there like mystery? Like, were listeners like, oh my God, what did Andy Janovich say?
So I'll be honest with you. I've never heard it on the flip side from a listener aspect when the dump button is hit. I just know that it's like a 2-second where it just blanks out. Whatever word was just over the air, it goes silent. So they missed a word. There was probably 2 seconds of dead air right there. So
it's better that way, right? Like there's some unknown in that at that point.
Yes. Yeah. And there's no telling what people imagine, they could have gone anyway with that. Instead, you went penis, which is fine. But it was great. And you know what? It kept me on my toes. So I appreciate you. Sometimes I get caught up in the live tweeting, and it woke me up. I was like, wow, okay, dump button. So
that's really why I said it. I mean, it was just to make sure that you're alert and reacting and engaged in the conversation.
I appreciate you. I appreciate that. I'm firing on all cylinders right now. So I have to be, I have to be. I'm working with two of the greats right there, and Ronnie and Tom, and I got to be on my A game as well. So having a guest like you on is so much fun, and I appreciate you keeping me in check, man.
Well, just so everybody knows what good of a guy you are, like you didn't even bring this up to me. Like I was eating lunch or something, or no, I was hustling to an interview after that, and it kind of hit me. Oh my god, I probably shouldn't have said that on the radio. So I apologized to you via text, and you're like, "Oh, no problem, man. We just dumped it real quick." So I hope you relayed my apologies to Ronnie and T.
Oh, I
Crass
did.
as well.
Yeah, they totally got it. I told them that you were in podcast mode, and they thought it was funny. So all good, man.
Okay.
All good. Especially
I don't have a lifetime ban or anything like that.
No, you're fine. And since I hit the dump button, it was funnier, because I took care of it. It'd be maybe a different story if I would have missed my job, but no, it was great, man.
Well, let's talk Bucks, and let's start there. I mean, with Baker Mayfield, because I think outsiders see that Tom Brady isn't here anymore, and they are instantly writing Tampa Bay off. All right, this is clearly a transition year, rebuilding year, a Caleb Williams year. But when you really do look at the roster, we'll get into like the defense and some of the guys that are still around. The more I looked at them, like, no, this is a team that, granted, it was a bad division, but they did win the division, and it was kind of in spite of the quarterback play. But you tell me, like, Tom Brady in, the version of Tom Brady that we saw last year, transitioning to Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, I guess they're competing for the job.
Yeah.
Is it an upgrade? Is it a downgrade? What do you make of it right now?
You know what? I'm not going to say this as any shot to Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. I do think it is a downgrade in a sense of pure football IQ, because you look at Tom Brady and the ability to win a game on a 2-minute drive. There's nobody like Tom Brady. And if I'm not mistaken, he had 3 2-minute drives last season in which, resulted in victories for the Buccaneers. A couple of those were in prime time. And again, it wasn't the typical Tom Brady that we've been used to throughout his career. However, even Tom at 45 is better than a majority of the NFL last year and most of those quarterbacks. And he did single-handedly, in my opinion, win 3 of those games that the Buccaneers did win last year just because of his ability to execute on a 2-minute drive. Now, the one thing that the Buccaneers did lack last year, well, 2 things really, mobility at quarterback and rushing attack offensively. They were not able to establish a rushing attack, even with a great young running back in Rachaad White. Leonard Fournette had some inconsistencies as well in the backfield too. But they were unable to get the rushing attack going. It was historically one of the worst rushing attacks and offenses in the NFL ever. So now you have mobility. If it's Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, you do have more mobility than you do with a 45-year-old Tom Brady. So I feel as if the sense of the offense maybe being less stagnant and more, I guess you could say, creativity, I think there is that, and I think that's what is exciting about having Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask in at quarterback. I think that there is a new sense of excitement in that regard, because you do know that your quarterback can now evade sacks, can now roll out of the pocket at a high level and still make throws down the field if need be. And plus, I feel like the Buccaneers' offensive line may have gotten better since last season with the addition of a guy like Cody Mauch.
And it's probably foolish to frame the question like I did, saying you're upgrading a quarterback with this name to that name, but the offense can absolutely upgrade. I can't believe Tom Brady threw more passes last year than he had in any of his 23 NFL seasons. 733 pass attempts at age 45 with a historically bad run game and a banged up, not good offensive line. It felt like every Bucs game was kind of the same, where they just couldn't get anything going on offense. It was like a twisted version of the 2011 Tim Tebow-led Broncos, right? Where it's just garbage offensively for most of the game, and then your quarterback does something wild, and it's Tom Brady in this case, and he did. I mean, there were some great moments. I just feel like offensively they absolutely can upgrade.
That's a great analogy comparison right there. I couldn't have thought of a better one right there than you just did with Tim Tebow and those Broncos. Demaryius Thomas had that huge play in overtime, the game-winning touchdown. But, yeah, it was like that. I mean, there were never times, or there were very few times where even when the Buccaneers were trailing that I thought, okay, the Buccaneers are out of this game, simply because Tom Brady was under center. He was still there. He was still the quarterback of the Buccaneers. Yeah, it was an older Tom Brady. It was a Tom Brady without a rushing attack. But I still felt confident in Tom Brady doing his thing. And we saw some amazing throws, amazing drives in which Tom Brady constructed last season. However, We also saw some terrible throws too. We saw in the playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys in the end zone. I have never seen Tom Brady throw an interception quite like that. He even said he was trying to get the ball out of the end zone, and it was in the end zone, and it hung too long, picked off. So, there were some highs and lows last year, and Tom Brady was a part of majority of those highs and lows. But I wouldn't trade having Tom Brady last year for anything, just to see the GOAT one last go around, we think, here in Tampa Bay. So it was still fun.
Especially with the way 2021, when he was better in 2021 than he even was that Super Bowl season in 2020. I mean,
Yes.
the numbers bear it out, but even the feel of those games, that Rams game, they win that game, that's an all-time Brady moment.
Oh, no doubt about it. And again, Tom Brady brought so much excitement and joy here to Tampa Bay, and honestly helped create that Tampa Bay culture, because the Tampa Bay Lightning had been winning games. The Rays had been winning playoff games too. Now the Buccaneers are finally winning playoff games. They make it to the Super Bowl his first year in 2020. They win it all. And I really did think they have a shot, or they did have a chance to repeat there as Super Bowl contenders. But last season, I didn't have Super Bowl expectations. I knew, Tom Brady was getting a little bit older, and at a certain point, it is going to catch up to him, and I think it did a little bit last year. And obviously, he knew that too. That's why he stepped away from the game of football.
I mean, we're high on Rachaad White. Obviously, I mean, the story off the field is remarkable. Everything he's been through, from Kansas City and witnessing, somebody die right in his front lawn, to JUCO and breaking into abandoned houses and living with cockroaches. It's nuts. I mean, what he survived to get to this point. And you're right, the numbers weren't great last year. I'm just looking at it now. He ran 129 times for 481 yards, a touchdown, caught 50 balls for 290, 2 touchdowns. But it did feel like he had some pop to him, and it really wasn't his fault. I mean, the line wasn't very good. The scheme kind of got stale. So where does it go for Rachaad White from here? What does this offense look like, and how is he going to be utilized?
I think he's going to be the primary back here in Tampa Bay. I think he takes a huge step. I think his numbers jump substantially here in his second year, which is crazy to think. In the latter half of the season last year, late in the season, that's when he really took over that starting role. I know Leonard Fournette was still getting paid big bucks, and he was still seeing a good amount of snaps, but you did see that Rachaad White was the guy. And as you mentioned, the pop was there with Rachaad White. He brought that pop. That explosiveness was there that Leonard Fournette kind of lost last year. And I do believe that Rachaad White has a chance to be one of the top running backs in the NFL in a few years. I think this year he takes a huge leap. He's going to rush for over 100,000 yards this year. I do believe that. And I think that with Dave Canales in this offense, we do see a more run-heavy offense. And I think he's going to utilize his running backs. And obviously Chase Edmonds in the backfield too. Keyshawn Vaughn still there as well. But Rachaad White is hands down the bell cow here in Tampa Bay. And I think Rachaad White, he's one of those guys that if you're playing fantasy football, and he might still be a guy that's somewhat slept on, you pick this guy up. I mean, you can have this guy be an RB1 in fantasy football for sure.
Dude, you ain't kidding about the historically bad run game last year. They had 3 runs of 20 yards or more last season. 3! That's it.
Yeah, it was awful.
Dead last.
I think a lot of that did have to do with the offensive line as well. They were banged up. Luke Gedeke really never found his footing after a tough stretch. I think he had 4 or 5 straight games to start off his rookie year, and it was tough. He got bullied around a little bit, and he was trying to grow out of that shell, trying to get more used to the NFL speed of things, but really could not because he faced some of the toughest front sevens in the NFL. But again, I think that Rachaad White will have a good year this year, and I think that historically bad rushing attack is a thing of the past here in Tampa Bay.
Well, StreamYard can kind of play games with us. You got me, Chris?
I got you, man.
So you've got Cody Mock at right. I mean, obviously a tackle in college, moving to guard. Maybe he's a center down the road. He's got to be the knight in shining armor here in a way, right? I mean, he does give you hope, identity-wise, that things can change. And then the play calling, the play design, what gives you the hope that they can drastically change this aspect of their team?
Well, I like how young and hungry this guy is. He's very physical, plays until the whistle is blown, and still has some tenacity in him with Ryan Jensen on the offensive line. is going to be scary. I mean, these guys are two very fierce guys. They're very they play with a lot of aggressiveness too. They're physical. And Tristan Wirfs, we all know what Tristan Wirfs brings to the table too. He'll be on that left side of the offensive line as well. So those three alone, I feel very comfortable and confident in. And I think that Cody Mauch is going to be one of those guys that comes in right away and he helps establish this rushing attack. I do know that there are question marks regarding his pass blocking skills, but that'll come in due time. This Buccaneers offense is going to run the football early and often, especially the first couple of games this year. With a new quarterback, an entirely new offensive scheme, they do know that they have two solid wide receivers, great wide receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and a young and up-and-coming tight end in K. Dotton as well. But I think that Luke Gedeke takes a big leap this year too. I'm not saying he's going to be astronomically better, but I think he's a serviceable starter now in the NFL. I would like to see that. And if Tristan Wirfs holds down the left side, the blind side for either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, I feel very confident in the Bucs offensive line. And I'm not saying they're going to be elite as a line. I'm thinking they're going to be a very respected offensive line. And with a guy like Rachaad White running behind them and waiting his turn to hit the gaps, it's going to be pretty successful here in Tampa Bay. And again, we talk about the Buccaneers' stagnant offense last year. I think a lot of that had to do with Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator. I don't think he was too great last year. I think he kind of fell in that trap of just believing in Brady. That's why they threw the ball so many times. And the offensive play calling got monotonous at times as well. A fresh start. And Dave Canales, who spent time with Seattle and helped develop Geno Smith, resurrected Geno Smith's NFL career out in Seattle. I'd like to see that here with Baker Mayfield. And I think that he has a chance to do so.
That's such a great point. It's going to be a completely different look. With Brady, he really was a sitting duck. I mean, and it's to his credit, too. He's got the knowledge and the quick release to get the ball out a zillion times in a season at age 45, but he just didn't move at all. And it sounds like Canales really wants to get Baker on the move, or Kyle Trask, right? It's a quarterback competition. But
that's
play
what
action,
they say.
Boots, timing. So, yeah, that's – I can see how you can talk yourself into this Bucs offense. I really wasn't there early this offseason, but between the OC, between Love and Baker Mayfield and all that stuff you can't measure on a spreadsheet, the receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. But really, what really gets me jacked up about Tampa Bay's chances of being a playoff team, I mean, really, that could be the goal. They made it last year. Is the defense. I think you still have some studs. Don't really know what's going on with Devin White. Pretty unhappy, right? Maybe we start there. Where's his head at?
You know what? I don't know. I think he's with an agent that's trying to get him a lot of money right now, and saw that other linebackers are getting paid, and he's like, "Hey, Devin, I think you're better than this guy. Hey, Devin, I think that you could bring in this amount of money." And realistically, the money that he's going to demand or expect after his contract year is going to be a $100 million contract, and I just don't think you could pay a guy like Devin White that much money. Now, he is a very talented linebacker. I'm not saying that. He's very talented. However, I do think that there were too many question marks last year regarding his effort. There were several plays last year, even in that game against Baltimore, I believe Thursday Night Football, in which Shaq Barrett went down with a torn ACL. I was questioning Devin White's effort, and you could see it. He was jogging to the ball. He wasn't sprinting to the ball anymore. Let a guy run right past him in the end zone. And there were 3 or 4 moments last year where you really did question his effort. And I think if you have a captain's C on your chest and you're questioning your effort, I think that's a pretty big deal. So the talent is there. It's just a matter of being consistent with the talent. And I think he is going to show up for training camp, of course. I think he needs to. That's the best decision for him now as far as playing and also financially down the road as well. You do not want to miss out on anything mandatory no matter what, no holdouts. You have to show up, and he's very good. The thing is, he's just not very consistent based off last season. I think that playoff run in 2020 really helped him out a lot, and it helped put a lot of spotlight on this guy. And he had one phenomenal playoff run, and he's been hit or miss since, in my opinion. And again, he does have a lot of potential. He's good, but you have to be consistent to be considered great in this league. And a guy that I look at as consistent, Lavonte David. He's never a guy that's been questioned for his effort. He's always given it his all. You never have to question it, even in his 30s now, as Lavonte David is in. But Devin White in a contract year, he wants to get paid. He has to show up this season and be the best Devin White that he can be, not only to have a great season, but more importantly for him, obviously financials, he has to play big in order to get paid.
Man, it's crazy to have this conversation to me because that playoff run, I mean, he was the difference. I mean, he was an animal. You saw this dude from LSU, scouts, coaches, players, anybody who's come through Baton Rouge just says how different those practices are in college. I mean, they just beat the hell out of each other. And he just seemed to be cut from that culture, exactly what Tampa needs. I mean, the defense won that Super Bowl. He had Mahomes on the run.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what's in him, right? Like that's maybe what's a little frustrating if you're Tampa Bay. It's you know he can be one of the best defensive players in football. How do you get that week in and week out, season in and season out, when you've got Levante David, who's been doing this since 2012? I mean, right, Levante David has been one of the most consistent,
Mm-hmm.
like laser beam linebackers of this generation. I mean, he's been unbelievable. So you think that would kind of rub off on Devin White, wouldn't it?
That's what you would think. And again, I think, Tyler, here the situation is maybe you see a young player in Devin White who won a Super Bowl get a little bit complacent after winning that Super Bowl. And that's been a thing that we've talked about on the Ronnie and T-Crash show as well. It's been brought up a time or two. Did Devin White get complacent after winning a Super Bowl so young? And just maybe expecting, hey, this is the norm. We have Tom Brady, and kind of fell in that trap. That's also been a big question mark regarding Devin White. And also his tweeting, too. He puts out some very vague tweets that leaves the audience guessing. And I don't know if he's intentionally trying to just play games and stay in the spotlight or what. But either way, I think he just needs to lay off Twitter for now because you're just bringing that attention upon you. And I know some people love the attention. Negative, positive, that's okay. However, if you're tired of all the negativity and being questioned for your play and the way you approach social media, just lay off for a little while. Let your play do the talking, show up for camp, this and that, and then come back to social media. But I think the tweeting also just adds so many question marks because we saw Devin White comment and like stuff about the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason too, which is what brought up some red flags when he's talking about money and he's talking about his favorite color being green and commenting when Jalen Hurts got signed by the Philadelphia Eagles. He said something about Jalen getting his bag that he deserved and just little things here and there. And again, it could be nothing, but from an outsider looking in, it's a bad look.
It's so funny that, I mean, it's a legit conversation we have to have, but I'm just trying to think back to like the 70s and 80s when people are talking about the best players in football. And imagine back then they said, man, he's talking about his favorite color being green. Like this is a concern, but it's true. And this is how players try to flex this time of year, I guess. And when they don't really have the financial means within the CBA to, I mean, they can sit out OTAs, they can sit out the non-mandatory stuff, but when it comes to mini camp, when it comes to training camp, and you start losing money, they're probably going to show up. Like Stefon Diggs is doing a lot of the same stuff up in Buffalo. And some people are freaking out. He's not there at OTAs right now. He's tweeting cryptic stuff. He did some more cryptic tweets today.
What's he putting out there now?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to pull it up right now because that's a great point. And we had Isaiah McKenzie on. He's like, Stefon Diggs, he's just like my fiance. Sometimes you just have to let her go, let her talk, and you don't even have to say anything. They just need to get stuff off their chest. So here's Stefon Diggs today. There was a few. He goes, I just mind my business, ... You got to love a good ... And then I don't take anything personal from people I don't know personally. And then people get mad when you don't react how they wanted you to ... So only 2 dots on the last one.
2 dots on that last one, huh? All right. Well, I don't understand. It does bring attention, but I don't think it brings that positive attention or that attention that thinks, hey, let me pay this guy. I think it's more or less of, hey, let's get this over with. That way he can focus on football. We want to win a championship there with the Buffalo Bills. We have to have our guy, Stefon Diggs, on the right page. And if he's out there tweeting stuff like this, it would be a bit frustrating, in my opinion. I can see that, especially if I were a Buffalo Bills fan.
I mean, and it's not uncommon, right? I think today's athlete, they probably like seeing, the first tweet gets 1,364 likes as of, 10 o'clock here on Wednesday night. The next one gets 1,672 likes. The next one gets 1,896. I mean, those dopamine hits. Sometimes guys need them this time of year, and he's not alone. I think here's what, at least they're here. I'm in Tampa with you. Where Devin White, he can go to a teammate like Patrick Laird and just read a good book, right? Like that Patrick Laird is all about book clubs, and he's just immersing himself into you know fiction, nonfiction. He's done it back to the Cal days, so maybe that's what can happen. I think he can mend the fences here.
I mean, I think it'll all work out with Devin White as far as this season is concerned. Do I think that Devin White gets paid big bucks here in Tampa Bay after this season? No, I don't think that he gets that contract that he's expecting or hoping for right now in Tampa Bay. No matter what happens this season, I don't know if he'll get exactly what he's wanting. I just don't think you can pay a linebacker what most people were expecting him to want, and that's over $100 million.
Right. I think at the end of the day, he'll be there. Levante David will obviously be there. And I love the secondary. I sat down with Carlton Davis today, and we'll have the story at Go Long in the coming weeks. But, man, this guy, there aren't many players wired like him who have been through what he's been through back to his South Florida days, who want to shadow a receiver one-on-one and shut that receiver down, shut that receiver up. It was refreshing. I mean, we could have talked for hours, and I just feel like there's not many guys like that who, you get toasted by Tyreek Hill in week 12, and then you call your shot ahead of the Super Bowl, and you're part of a defense that shuts down this KC offense. I feel like he's still in his prime, and that gives you some hope if you're talented.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I think that this guy is just starting to hit his prime. He's very, very good. I think he's taken that leap for the Buccaneers, especially last year. I felt very good about Carlton Davis and where he is at. And Antoine Winfield Jr. also there in the secondary, too. He's exciting. Now, the Buccaneers did lose a guy in Sean Murphy-Bunting. He went to the Tennessee Titans. So there is a bit of a question mark there. Who steps up in that role? But as far as everything else is concerned, yeah, I do like this Buccaneers defense. And you talk about guys like Levante David being back. That's huge. Devin White being back when he's on his A game. He is one of the best linebackers in the National Football League. And then also Vita Vea up front on the defensive line. Elijah Cansey now being brought in as a rookie. Yaya Diaby. Shaq Barrett returning from ACL. He's going to be, I think, in his early 30s. He's coming off of a big injury. We'll see what we have in Shaq Barrett. But if it's the Shaq Barrett we saw 2 years ago, I mean, this guy is very, very good, and he brings a lot to the table. That's one thing the Bucs lacked last year was pressure from the outside on that defensive line. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has been a bit of a disappointment in my opinion. I think this is a year for him to shine or a year for him to show that he does not have what it takes to be on this roster.
Man, what a great roundup. I mean, and obviously prayers to Shaquille Barrett's family. I cannot imagine going through something like that. Holy hell. It's hard to even wrap your mind what they've gone through with their daughter.
You really can't even wrap your mind around it, man.
Oh, especially having kids. Oh, my God. It just instantly, sets the emotions off. Elijah Cansey was and there. I mean, he's a prospect in Bob McGinn's draft rankings here at Go Long, where these scouts are pretty rough around the edges, very, very rough around the edges. They don't hold back on prospects, but he was one prospect that a lot of scouts clearly loved. Just goes 100 miles an hour. It's always a little dicey if it's an undersized-ish player at that position, but man, what a ball of fury just to throw in the middle of Todd Bowles' defense. I mean, he's somebody that can bring some pop.
Oh, no doubt about it. And we saw Todd Bowles utilize Devin White a few years ago as that guy who brought the pop. This guy, Elijah Cansey, might be that guy that brings the pop for the Buccaneers here this season. And, yeah, he is going to be a rookie, obviously. He's young. Some call him undersized. However, that motor, that heart, that drive that he plays with, the tenacity that he brings to the table is relentless. It's fun to watch him. I've seen a lot of tape on this guy, and I think that he brings a lot to the table for this Buccaneers defense. Brings a lot of versatility as well. Brings speed to the defense, which is one thing that the Buccaneers may have lacked a little bit of last year. But also on top of that, I think it's going to be fun to see this guy develop over time in this Todd Bowles defense, because at the end of the day, when you think of the Buccaneers, you do think of this Buccaneers defense. And Todd Bowles, yeah, there have been some question marks with him as a head coach, but as a defensive coordinator, he is among the elite defensive coordinators in the NFL. And I really do like Elijah Cansey. And he was on the Ronnie and T. Crash show a few weeks ago, right after his presser, Tyler. And he joined us, and Tom brought up Bryce Young. And he said, how do you feel about seeing Bryce Young 2 times a year? And Elijah Cansey told us and said, Tom, I'm sorry, but Bryce Young is going to have to see me 2 times a year. And I'm thinking, oh man, like this is the first time Bucks fans are hearing from this guy, and he says that. I mean, that's a lot of confidence right there, and you have to love that energy on the football field. You need to play with that confidence, and it's going to be fun to watch this guy develop over time and thrive in this Buccaneers defense. With again, guys like Vita Vea on the line, Shaq Barrett back, Devin White, Levante David, Antoine Winfield can blitz as well. It's going to be very exciting, and if there's one staple piece of this Buccaneers team that you can count on to be great this year, it will be that defense.
I mean, it's, we're seeing it to the extreme with the Denver Nuggets and Miami Heat right now, but that effort mentality of like people don't believe us. Everybody, every team, every coach, every G, like they try to manufacture it. It's real here. I mean, power rankings are all a waste of our brain cells, as we discussed on Ronnie and T-Grass earlier, but look at anybody pumping that garbage out, and Tampa will be 30th, 31st. They're at the bottom. I think guys can genuinely lean into that. And I can't believe it either. I think it's just a good team that you lose Tom Brady, but you're not losing, the Tom Brady that won you a Super Bowl or what, has been an MVP. It's
and you're
replaceable, but I think the offense it needs to be replaced, really.
Yes.
The whole offense.
Yeah, and that's what they got. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, a fresh mind, and Dave Canales. I'm excited for him, and obviously he has high expectations for himself. So it's going to be fun to watch this experimental offense here this season. And you know what? They got a bye week after week 4 against the New Orleans Saints. They play on the road at the Saints, then they hit a bye week. Yeah. That'll be an interesting time. At that point, if the Buccaneers are 0-4, which I don't foresee, but if they're 0-4, do they make a quarterback change? Or, at week 4, do you install some more things with this offense? You know more about the offense. You know more about what Baker Mayfield can do. I think as far as with a new offense, a new offensive coordinator, a lot of new pieces, I kind of like having the bye week there after week 4. However, I don't like it, obviously, if they make a playoff run. If they're down the stretch and they have a shot to win the division, and that's kind of the NFL thinking the Buccaneers don't have a shot to win the division, in my opinion. If they put the bye week right there, I was talking to Ronnie about that earlier this week, and he said the same thing, is it kind of feels like the NFL it doesn't expect the Buccaneers to win this NFC South, which is crazy to me because you look at the Saints and they got Derek Carr. They definitely upgraded at quarterback. However, Alvin Kamara, he's going to get in some kind of trouble at some point. That's a big loss. And how much does Derek Carr really bring to the table? What did he do with the Raiders, really? I mean, we saw some moments of a lot of success, and we saw a lot of dump-off passes, too, from Derek Carr. So Derek Carr has to play his best football in order for the Saints to run away with this division. Carolina, I think they're young and up-and-coming. I think in 2 years, Carolina will probably rule this NFC South. However, I don't see it this year with a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young. And Atlanta, too many question marks with their quarterback Desmond Ridder right now. I have to see a lot more from him, and they haven't utilized Kyle Pitts like you would expect them to utilize Kyle Pitts, especially with where they drafted him a few years ago. But it is up for grabs. I mean, you could tell me Carolina wins the division, and would I put money on that? No. But would I be totally shocked? No. If Atlanta won the division, I wouldn't be totally shocked. If Tampa Bay wins the division, would not be shocked. New Orleans, I think, is kind of the expected to win the division as of right now. So, again, I think it's going to be fun to watch this NFC South play out, and it really is up for grabs, Ty. I mean, it really is.
Well, you are an unbelievable human being because I think we talked 15, 20 minutes with your schedule, and we went double that. So not only am I dropping, vulgarities on your show and forcing you to hit the dump button, but you're giving us all of your time, Chris. So thank you so much for breaking down the Bucks. And, I'll try to find another brutal expletive or vulgarity or something that's really off color to reference on the next time.
All right, man.
I won't do that. I promise. No, so I'll clean up my act.
That's great. Hey, I appreciate you having me, man, anytime, and look forward to having you join us on 95.3 WDAE, my man. Keep up the great work. Even down in Tampa Bay, we appreciate your work and what you do for the game of football. It's been fun to keep up with, and I'm glad we were able to, meet face-to-face here on this Go Long podcast. So thanks, brother.
No, hey, thank you, man. It's been great getting to know you, and God, you're doing an awesome job with the show, with your podcast. We'll be sure to link it, to plug it, and yeah, let's make this happen in the flesh.
Absolutely, man. Hey, have a great night. Talk to you soon.